So this morning we had a lot of talks about production workflows and the idea of IP in production workflows and replacing point-to-point SDI and that type of connectivity. I think the takeaways this morning were that it's here and it's coming, but we're not yet at scale there. And I think it was a very thought-provoking conversation around what is going to take for us to get to scale, to get to the point where the first thing you think about when you're going to put together a new facility is some kind of IP or 2110 transport. This afternoon, we're going to turn to a couple of different topics. And so I'd like to introduce our first panel this afternoon with Yolanda, who will be moderating AI workflows for post-production in the cloud. Just post-production in the workflows in the cloud is a topic into itself, and then you add AI on top of that, and there's a lot to talk about. Yolanda, you ready? All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, welcome, everyone. And to kick off, we have a little treat for you. So we can play a video.
Silicon Valley dream video in the cloud, AI workflows, big tech we thrive. On LinkedIn we mingle, network tight, AI's a game changer, future's bright. Silicon Valley video, we lead the way, AI in the cloud, here to stay. LinkedIn Connect, that's how we play. Scalability every day. Post-production revolution, break the mold. AI's the key, let the story be told. Silicon Valley video, we lead the way. AI in the cloud, here to stay. LinkedIn Connect, that's how we play. Scalability every day.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is what AI can do. And Matty will talk through it and on how it was done and how it was all put together. But yeah, that's just a teaser of the potential, right, that we've already seen. So thank you for joining us in our session today. We're going to be covering a lot of information. My name is Yolanda. I'm an enterprise product manager at LinkedIn, and I'm very honored to host this session. So we're going to be covering a lot of information, right? How are we using AI? What tools should we use? What are some recommendations on our workflows and how we can incorporate AI? So there's a lot to cover. We'll get on with it. If there is time for Q&A, we will do so, but we'll play that one by ear. So let's start. All right. Gabe, if you wouldn't mind kicking us off. 5 minutes, please, and then we'll popcorn to the rest of the panelists. How have you been incorporating AI in your workflows, in your team? What has worked, what hasn't worked?
That's a two-part answer. I personally use AI for my filmmaking and for my personal art. But then at Edelman, we are also trying to integrate it into our larger production studio. And part of my job is to vet those tools to see what's real and what's not, the use cases for them, but also what is safe about it. How can we incorporate it in a safe manner, protect our clients, make sure that what we're using is above board, and make sure that we're protected as well.
Thank you. And then maybe if we can popcorn over to Marty. And sorry, Gabe, if you wouldn't mind, just a quick introduction of yourself, and then Marty to start.
I'm Gabe Michael. I should have started with that. I'm the VP and executive producer at Edelman, specifically focused on AI and AI integration, building out AI teams and how AI is going to work into our not only post-production, but a full production workflow.
Thank you. Matty, if you could start with the same introduction and how you've been incorporating AI, what you've been working on.
Of course. Hello, everyone. My name is Matty Shimura. I'm an executive producer of AI film and TV at Civitai. Civitai is the largest resource hoster for Stable Diffusion and other AI workflows, LoRa's, checkpoints, so the different styles and characters that you're able to do with fine-tuned control over your different image to video and text to video workflows. We also have a creator ecosystem that we're trying to cultivate. So in addition to being able to comment and post and share, we're hosting different competitions. So all of the clips that you saw from that video were a supercut of the most recent Project Odyssey competition. Gabe actually is one of the participants, and Rachel is one of the judges as well. And we partnered with other companies such as 11 Labs, Luma, Leonardo, to try and be able to connect the communities, creators, and companies across the AI film space. So being able to work with that and also original content.
Thank you. Rachel?
Hi, my name is Rachel Joy Victor. Really excited to be here. I think before I get to what we're doing in the AI space at Fabric right now, I'll give a little context to how I got here, how we got here, maybe a little bit as an industry. I think as a whole, I'm LA-based, so I hear a lot of conversations nowadays about people being like, AI just popped up in the last 2 years. I think probably everyone in this room knows that isn't the case. So I study computational neuroscience and spatial economics, so AI was a part of my process and my workflow for a while, but bringing that into the interactive and immersive space, I worked as a narrative designer and world builder. Out of all of that was seeing a movement on the content side towards, one, becoming very computational. The whole process is very data-based across different disciplines, right? When we're thinking interactive and immersive content, if we want the content to respond to us, there's data at the core of that and data architectures that support that. But then there's also cross-format production where virtual production is interfacing with how we think also about VR creation or gaming creation. And all of those processes in general are becoming more about data and thinking about less about like just capturing the image, but more about capturing data and bringing that across the pipeline. So all of these changes were happening. I'd worked in the design side, I'd worked on the strategy side, I led design and strategy for a number of brands, collaborating with a number of brands like Nike, Crocs, Vans, Philips, and companies that were trying to think about where this role fit in. And the big gap there was tooling. Companies wanted to build for these new categories of experiences. They wanted to be able to have more responsive production pipelines, but there was this gap between kind of the legacy practices and what the tooling could enable. So, having AI be a part of my process for throughout my career was seeing that it was kind of reaching a point where different categories of AI coming alongside where generative AI was, were really helping us to create these new tools and really a context for this new tool creation. So Fabric AI is really positioned in that space. We're focused around, one, we do events and we focused on education and upskilling and bringing the community along. Two, we're finding startups that are developing these tools. And Gabe, I'm sure we'll talk more about like what it means to be a good tool in this space. And we're supporting them as advisors with go-to-market and product. And then we are technical advisors for studios or companies that are developing these new workflows to help them think through when do you develop a new tool? Where do you integrate an existing tool? What does that look like? How are you thinking about your pipeline more cohesively? And that's where we're positioned.
Hello, everybody. My name is Kareem. I work at LinkedIn. So I work with Yolanda here and my good buddy Gary, who's floating around here somewhere. There he is, right there. That's the man right there. Okay. So, I've been at LinkedIn for about 10 years now. I worked predominantly on LinkedIn.com, like consumer side, but last few years been dabbling in video. It's been exciting. It's my first time here. So to give you an idea, I work in content technology engineering with Gary, and we're focused predominantly on using, my team's focused predominantly on using software engineering for the content creation lifecycle, okay? Proxy creation, audio extraction, all these other sorts of types of things, orchestrating all that together, preparing everything, so that we can do a hybrid of, automated curation of content as well as hand curation of content. And over the last year, we've made great inroads into doing a lot of different things with AI. I could spend forever talking about this, and maybe we'll get into some more detail, but just to give you a taste of some of the things we've been doing for LinkedIn. And this is predominantly for LinkedIn Learning and editorial news, but predominantly LinkedIn Learning, okay? Some of the things we've been doing is a lot of intelligence based off of the transcriptions of a course, for example. So we're working on, actively creating exams and assessments and course questions for LinkedIn Learning, glossaries for the course, descriptions for the course. A lot of that extends into taxonomy and classification of content so that we have it labeled and indexed for searching and quick lookup. We create a lot of content and a lot of assets, and being able to tag that with AI allows us to quickly discover that content so we don't have to peruse around a bunch of different folders. I mean, so many other things. We're doing synthetic voice, we're doing translations. Sometimes customers will come and tell us, I want 50, LinkedIn Learning seats for all courses in AI filmed after 2022 with a 5-star instructor, for example, right? So we have all of our content indexed ready to go so we can pull up information like that. Just the rapid accessibility that we get has been instrumental for us. So that gives you a brief insight into how we do it at LinkedIn. And I guess I'll take it back to you, Yolanda. Okay.
Thank you. AI tools for the enterprise. Very hard to find good ones right now. I'd like to ask each one of you what has worked for you and what influences your decision in terms of what tools to use, right? You can buy, you can build, you have to worry about security, you have to worry about privacy. What influences your decisions? What has worked? Please share with the audience.
Yeah, so for me, you're going to get a very software engineering type answer. So we build everything we do in Azure, of course, because that's who owns us, so we get a discount. So we build in Azure, and there's a lot of offerings in Azure, and really the LLM or the OpenAI or whatever we use in Azure is just one piece of it, right? That's just one piece of it. There's so much more that goes behind the scenes. We're using a lot of other resources in Azure, compute, storage, orchestration, a lot of different things we're doing to tie all this together. And in Python, we use a lot of different libraries in Python. If you've heard of LangChain, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with software engineering, we use a lot of LangChain. We use different models and paradigms when it comes to building AI applications. There's the RAG model, which you can think of as like a brain, right? Which is you give it content and you train on it, and then you can search and, generate content from that. So I guess my answer would be mostly around software engineering. So we do cloud applications, we do Azure, do a lot of Python, we do the RAG model, RAG model. And we're very dependent on Azure and a lot of its resources to be able to orchestrate the things that we do. Also accessibility for our users, right? For example, if a content creator wants to come in and peruse through our courses and generate course assessments, for a LinkedIn course, right? Being able to select, we have front-end applications with nice user interface designs. They can come in and choose their courses and design how they want the quizzes and assessments to be generated. So I would say, from my perspective, and this is just my perspective, is very software engineering focused, and the LLM behind the scenes is a big portion of that, but it's just one portion. So I hope that gives you an idea.
And my background is not in tech. It's in production, film production and video production. But I've had to learn a lot of not only the terms, but how this technology works. Because frankly, I didn't think that this was going to be coming for video and for still imagery as fast as it has. So part of my role at Edelman is to look at tools, software tools across anything that's visual, audio, anything that has to do with production for our marketing division. And what we found is there's a lot of tools out there that are just simply the same underlying technology, just like you would have OpenAI, a ChatGPT, and with an API call to a wrapper, right? Like a website that's saying that they do this. And what we've discovered is actually there's a lot of companies out there that are doing that or calling themselves companies. So trying to figure out within each tool that we're vetting, what is the actual underlying technology? What are its use cases? What are the data protections for it? So obviously Adobe is one of our clients, but also one of our partners in this, and they are as much as enterprise safe as you can be. And that's mainly because of how they train their data set. What we're looking at when it comes to those to that data and the indemnification that they have for it. And that's really important to us and our clients. But on the video side, we obviously haven't had a chance to really vet Sora. It's not out there yet on the enterprise level, and it's not close to be, as far as I know. But we have been vetting Runway, which is, if you're unfamiliar, it is an amazing video tool. They just came out with a Runway Gen 3 Alpha, and I love it, personally. I happen to be a Runway, they had a contest, a Gen 48 contest, and I won both of them. So I kind of like the company. But, you know, there's pitfalls. It is not perfect. Is it full production ready? I don't know. It depends on what your production is. It depends on what you are making. But is it close? It's very close. And will it be there in the next week? Probably. And then there's a lot of other tools that we're looking at, like 11 Labs, as well as on the audio side. And it's the same thing. We're looking at the data set. We're looking at the protections that they have for us, and do they have the everything that our IT department needs. Does it have secure sign-on? Does it have a portal for divvying out credits? Do they have a good crediting system? And that's really important.
I can go next. So I think when we're looking at assessing which tools we want to use, we're kind of looking through two lenses, because we're positioned between trying to help companies and startups scale. There's the venture lens, right? Of, is this actually a scalable company? Is it solving for a problem, but is that problem big enough? And then we also have the lens of, where is it actually fitting within the workflow? So we define that as product pipeline fit. So I know we've heard of product market fit. This is specifically, is there enough are they integrated within a pipeline, and is that pipeline large enough and scalable enough that they have that potential for scale? So that's one category of assessment, and as a part of that, what you were speaking to around, like, is it a wrapper around technology they don't own? That's not scalable, that doesn't have a technical moat around it, it doesn't make sense for us to invest and think about utilizing them. Beyond that, though, I think another category that we're looking at is that production readiness, right? I think there's a lot of tools that are out there right now that are doing something really interesting on the consumer side of making it more accessible to creators. People who didn't think that they were creative or didn't feel like they had a creative tool, now they have these generative tools, and it's giving them this leg up and the ability to kind of execute on vision. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it meets the fidelity requirements for something that's going to be like in a film and TV production. So when we're looking at what tools to actually bring into an enterprise engagement, and this is like working with a studio, we're here as partners of Studio B&H, for example, and like working with their clients, or whatever these are, they're thinking about like what actually can give you predictable results, can be plugged into a workflow where multiple people will need to look at it, where you'll need to reproduce results and tweak results, right, which aren't quite capable with where generative tools are now. So we're looking at a lot of like hybrid approaches. So one of our startups that we're working with, for example, is a tool called Playbook Engine. They're looking and testing around hybrid physically based rendering and AI pipelines. So you gray box an environment using 3D, you gray box a 3D environment, and then you're individually able to prompt each object separately, pull in the depth information from that 3D scene, and also bring camera tracking into your prompt. So now when you prompt that, you want to go make a tweak, it's not like you're reprompting and totally regenerating the constraints of that scene. You have something that's able to be more constant throughout your production process, right? Are the results perfect? No, but it's an approach that if we work at, we might be able to get to that piece of control that a marketing agency might want to use, or something that they don't feel like they're just constantly reprompting and starting from scratch each time. Another thing we're looking at is looking beyond generative AI. Obviously, AI is a broad space. There's a lot that's happening. One of the things we were talking about before starting was when we think about post-production is kind of collapsing in terms of, not collapsing, that's not the good word. It's being integrated. There's a continuity of post-production, isn't solely post-production standing isolated, but if you look into where virtual production is going, some of these more computational approaches to filmmaking, the data can kind of be tracked from pre-visualization and pre-production through to a post-production pipeline, right? And so there's so much happening there beyond generative AI in terms of asset management and tracking, understanding content across that pipeline. One of our startups, ModTech Labs, is really focused on asset translation. how do I make this asset once and then explore how I can use that across different formats? Or if I'm making the asset in VFX, how do I now look at different ways to create low poly versions of that asset while still holding to what makes that asset unique and special, so that I can pull that into that virtual reality or gaming pipeline, right? So those are all things where not necessarily a generative approach, but it's an approach that's leveraging where data is at to go further. I think another tool I'll speak to quickly in that space is a tool like 12 Labs. Not 11 Labs, which we're going to talk about in a sec probably, but 12 Labs, which is focused around using a content embedding approach to understand video. So rather than a frame-by-frame approach of understanding what makes up each frame of a video, how am I understanding across frames to know what motion's happening so that I can prompt, show me all the clips of LeBron James cheering on the sidelines, and pull up all those relevant clips to speed up my editing workflow, right? Those are all things around that data management, asset management piece that have elements of AI, not necessarily generative AI, but are streamlining those types of workflows.
For me, I'm much more in the open source camp. I think there are two main groups of tools. There's closed source, so that's the Runways, the Lumas, the Pikas of the world, and then there's the open source side, which is more of the stable diffusion. I think there are benefits to both. I think on the closed source side, they're much more user-friendly. They are those wrappers. They have their own foundational models. You use a more simple-to-use graphical user interface. However, they have guardrails. Since they are meant for more of the mass market, it's hard to do things that go beyond a PG-13 level. If you want any blood or gore or anything that even I tried to prompt a World War II soldier riding on a horse, and it said that's against our terms of service. Whereas on the open source side, you do have that freedom. You have that character control using something called a LoRa. So you're able to plug in and have that full power to be able to choose your character, choose your aesthetic. And I think it's really the most powerful when it comes to these video-to-video rotoscoping workflows. And I think they're ones for each camp. The open source ones do take a bit more technical knowledge. You have to know how to use the command line. Have to know how to install things on your GPU and be able to get into some of these tutorials that oftentimes take a lot of troubleshooting, and there are friction points. But once you're able to unlock that, you're able to do so much more than what you might be able to do with something that's off the shelf. You're able to make this custom solution that has skeletal and face tracking and put all of these into a node-based system. What we're trying to do, though, is make that more accessible to users, whether it's finding those resources, finding the education and tutorials, and being able to prompt people to do more than just social media videos, but trying to put more of a focus on narrative using these tools. And there's no one tool for at least yet for the entire spectrum. You have to use a little bit here, a little bit there. So it's that combination to be able to make one of these excellent films.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question on open source tools. Do you worry about security, privacy with the open source tools? Also, so many come and go, right? How do you maintain consistency in what you build, carrying forward from one tool to the other?
I think that is a challenge of what is the training set of data. It's harder for a company like Edelman to have something that's commercially safe on the open source side. Being able to and things I think that are great are like Adobe's content authenticity initiative, where you're able to trace back that lineage, right, of that training data. However, I think it's moving to a form where, because these models are getting so big, and in terms of the training data set, I forget how many data points like stability, stable diffusion 3 used, but being able to have control over the archives, which a lot of these companies are really investing in a lot of money into those foundational models. We are not training foundational models ourselves, but rather being that platform for other people to host and do that on their own behalf, and then it's up to the user to determine which ones they want to use and where they draw that ethical line.
Thank you. For the next question, I'd like to kick off with Rachel. So the AI space is moving so fast. Things are changing so fast. Where do you go to get support from a community, to get help, to get feedback, to learn what to lean into? What have been your resources?
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting things about where generative AI is right now is everyone's in a very collaborative mindset. So if you just go on LinkedIn, if you go on X, there are always people sharing, the tutorials of their process and, what kind of workflows that they're putting together. To your point, a lot of it is you kind of have to, piece together. They're not necessarily very intuitive workflows that hand off to each other. And so the process can be kind of clunky, but I think there's a lot of resources out there. One of the things we're focused on in Fabric is creating those resources. We have our annual AI on the Lot events, which is like a full day of programming around what does AI look like in production, and we're hosting a lot of educational events throughout the year focused around that, creating community. We grew out of AI LA, which is a 17,000 member community in LA focused around people experimenting with AI or using AI across verticals. So we have this kind of community piece that's really built at the core of what we're doing, which is good, I think, for the upskilling piece of how are people understanding where these tools are and how they can be a part of it and integrate that within their work moving forward. But I think the other piece of it is, even from a tooling side for our startups, it's great for them to be integrated within community to really start seeing how their tools are actually being used in real life and applied, and go from there to refine their approaches to make sure they're really serving the needs of who will be using their tools.
The community aspect of AI art and then AI filmmaking in general is actually really interesting. AI gets a lot of negative buzz, saying that it is a art killer, that it is, it's taking all these jobs. And I have to say that I have never, as a filmmaker myself, I have never felt more creative than I have in the last 2 years since I've got my hands on some of these AI tools. And the community that's behind it is a bunch of people of seasoned vets. It's a weird mix. Matty and I are on this WhatsApp chain of 200 people, something like that now. And it's all the top artists that you may have heard of, you may have not. There's some new people, somebody that just had one clip that goes viral, we find them, we put them into this group, and we all share secrets of how to, what is our workflow like? What is the process like to get from X, Y to Z? How did you do that technique? But also it's a really interesting shared just love for the art and love for the actual workflow. And we, beyond the sharing of information, it's just this warm group of people, and you don't think of that when you think of AI. You think of a closed, cold, a really cold robot, but it's this really warm group of people that just help each other. And a lot of it is because there's no other place to get a lot of this information, right? You can go and you can play around with a lot of the tools yourself, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions about AI within the art side is that there's this magic button, and you push it, and then you get a full video. Sure, you get one clip, but if you were going to pick up a camera and you're gonna push record, you're getting one shot, right? And so to make a movie, you have to do a couple thousand shots. Same thing, and it's not even just a couple thousand generations. The last video that I did, a short film, I think I probably had close to 30,000 just to get a 2-minute short film. So it's a lot of it is because it was unusable, some of it, but then to really find and to really fine tune, you have to kind of have to dive in, and the community is just there to help and guide you along the way, but also to inform you of new tools that are out there, how to use them, and I think that's how we became friends.
Quickly adding on to what Gabe said, I think the AI films and communities often criticized as being synthetic or cold or soulless, but to echo what Gabe mentioned, I think it's some of the most warm and welcoming people. People want to share their techniques. Gatekeeping, your secret workflow, or how you did something is looked down upon, honestly, because the thought is that the space is moving so fast that we should try to uplift people and not, AI is all about how can we break down some of those barriers to entry. Even for myself, I was at Meta before this, part of the big VR layoffs of 2023, and I was left stuck thinking, what's my next career move? And only through the open source community, through going on Discord, through people helping me get workflows set up on my computer and troubleshoot and jumping into calls and going on YouTube tutorials where I was able to learn those skills. Of course, I had a background in filmmaking. However, for the AI workflows, I was starting from scratch. And only due to that community was I able to find myself where I am today.
Yeah, so I think at LinkedIn, if I was to answer Yolanda's question, I think there would be two things here. The first is we predominantly lean onto our customers, which are content creators at LinkedIn, okay? Now, these people have been doing it longer than, very long time. And we leverage a lot of their experience. They actually will peruse the landscape and see what people are doing and how AI is being used. And they also have a set of problems we need to solve, right? So for us, it's very important that number one, we leverage their expertise on, what's out there that they're excited about. And number two, more importantly, is what problem do they need solved? Where can we provide value? Because as it is, and if you're a software engineer, if you know a software engineer, one of the primary things that I think about my life is that I've done it before and I'll probably do it in the future, is we tend to romanticize certain problems, right? We look at a problem, we're like, oh yeah, we could do this, this, and that. We finish it, we show it, and the person's like, I don't really need this. So we really leverage our, and we've done this before, and I'm going to do it again probably next year, but we leverage a lot of our content creators at LinkedIn who will come and tell us, look, we have this problem, we want to solve it, we've seen other people do it, let's be very focused and strategic about it, and let's do this. And so for that, we've been making sure we solve the right problem the right way at the right time. Okay, so that's the first part. And then the second part is, once again, more from a software engineering perspective, has been data scientists. We have a lot of intelligent data scientists at LinkedIn who are familiar with this, been doing it for their PhDs. In my social circle, been working a while. I have a lot of friends who've been doing this a while. I sometimes will just call them and be like, hey, how do I solve this problem? And he'll be like, okay, Kareem, do expansion and vectorization and do this and that. And I'll be like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Here's a library to do it. So those are the two areas that we get support for software engineering for AI here. So,
Thank you, Kareem. One more, Kareem. There's a question around, why are we building stuff? Why don't we just go get a tool, use it, and get on with it? In what situations, what scenarios do we build and choose to build solutions?
You're talking about particularly AI right now, right? Yeah. So I think for us right now, for the last year, we have been focused primarily on things that do with text, okay? And because of that, we can get very close to the problem and solve it. And this is, a cutting edge space. And we've found that due to our engineering pedigree, we've been able to just attack the problem at its core and solve it using an LLM directly. There's a number of challenges with trying to use third-party tools, especially at LinkedIn. The first is security. We have an elaborate formal security process to make sure. Number two, we don't trust anybody else's cloud but ours. Okay, so we deploy tools within our ecosystem, and number three, I think we have when you build something yourself instead of using a black box, you have the ability to tune it and shape it in a way that you see fit. So we have these advantages, and so for that reason, particularly around anything to do with text, we're doing it ourselves. For synthetic voice, for example, one of the things we're exploring that we may be looking at external tools, so we're still doing some evaluation. But right now, everything's been mostly around text, and there's great software engineering support for doing that yourself. And if you look at other companies in similar situations, and they have good engineering pedigree, they'd probably end up doing it this way too. So, yeah.
Thank you. And I'd like to take the time, because we are a community too together, everyone here, online, and in this room. I'd like to leave some time open for questions. So please, there's a mic in the back, and there's a question online, please let me know. And as y'all come up to the mic, please feel free to introduce yourself.
the mic is coming to you.
Oh, the mic is coming to y'all, so even better.
Hi there, Dan from Apple. Question, is there now a standard method, or do you think there's a need even for a standard method for identifying synthetic voice or any other generative derivatives? So if you have a person on camera speaking in English, but then you have a Spanish, French, Portuguese versions of same, and then the person appears in real life and doesn't have the same fluency in Portuguese. Is there an authenticity or integrity problem here? And what would be the solution from the inside of the AI creation space out to suggest, rather than waiting for some government body to tell us what must be done?
I'll tackle that. I don't know what I mean, I guess it depends on per platform where you're watching it, right? And I think that they have their rules there. I think it would be easier to say what is real, like it's certified real, right? This is the original clip. You have the data there to back it up, to protect it. You can do your verification. This is the real clip with nothing added onto it, right? Nothing generative onto it. This is what it is. Anything else than that, I think in today's day, it's going to be very difficult to track. What I've noticed is there's a lot of transparency that goes on in the community right now, and I think because, as a species, we're scared of what this technology can do on the deepfake side. I think we are, and I think, we're going to put up our own guardrails, and I think it's up to how every individual platform works in order to put those guardrails for what works for them. Meta right now has their, if you go on if you go on Instagram, they haven't quite figured out what the fine balance is between, I put up a post that looks like a cartoon. I generated it in Midjourney. I animated it in Runway. And then it says, made with AI. But then when you look at the guardrails and what they say, qualifies for that, it's not really that. This is just a new technique that I use to create an animation, right? So I think that each individual platform will have to figure that out.
I think, to your point, it's a multifaceted kind of process of authentication because there's so many layers of it, right? There's the authentication of the person whose image is used. If it's not a fully synthetic being, if it's someone's name and likeness, there are tools like hand identity that are trying to explore this in the side of actors. Is there a kind of universal identity for that actor, and they have kind of control over even the version of themselves that's in a video game, right? So that's from the personality standpoint. There's also from the content creator standpoint of kind of what you were talking about around authentication, around creation. That's a super difficult challenge because it's hard to track when something that's AI might enter that workflow, right? I know there's different solutions around keystroke authentication or authentication even from the point of capture through publishing that are trying to be solved. But it's hard to fully validate that type of approach, right? Because if you're thinking about graphic designers are known to pull source footage from online and then completely change it to the point that it's unrecognizable, but maybe they get one texture from the image, right? That's something that's kind of a part of the workflow around design. But now when we're thinking about incorporating AI, what does that mean? What are the limits of where that should and shouldn't be utilized? Even with talking about something like Adobe, you can say, yes, we were taking from Adobe stock, but what if people upload Midjourney images to Adobe stock? Where's the barrier when you're authenticating around the content creation side, right? So that's a whole other bucket of issues. And then there's a whole bucket of issues, I think, around media literacy and consumer knowledge of at the point of viewing this, what are I think you spoke to this a little bit, Gabe, about what are the tags around what it means for something to be AI? If something is someone in real life that's human, but then the lip dubbing and the translation is automated, how do we kind of parse that out so people know which is which in something instead of just kind of glomming it all together and saying there was AI at work here, which makes it difficult to kind of parse how to interpret that piece.
I think we can squeeze in one more question. Great.
Got a question here.
Oh, the question there. Hello. Then we'll get to you. Yeah.
Could you, I guess I'm just going to throw out metadata. Do you, either of you individually or collectively, see a value in AI librarians to find things that you guys may not know of or your teams may not know of in your own data?
So I can take a stab at this one. So at the beginning, I kind of mentioned a little bit about the classification that we do for content at LinkedIn. And one of the things we've been really excited about and making great progress on is sometimes you may have tons and tons of clips, a lot of different clips, and you don't know what's in those clips or what those clips are used for. And suddenly you may want to dig up and look for a clip to use in some marketing material, right? So I mentioned orchestration earlier. So one of the things we're doing right now is running all of our content post-production through a classification system. And we use the transcription and we will soon use whatever we kind of see in the clip to assign labels to the content. And those labels get indexed by our MAM, our Media Asset Manager. And that's what we use to kind of look up what we need. So I don't know if when you say librarian, I don't know if you're referring to this, but we kind of do have this in place, and it allows us to rapidly bring up, like for example, we have Company Connect at LinkedIn, and we need to look up something our CEO said a while back. Man, we just search and it's there. So we do use AI a lot for taxonomy and content classification.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, something real quick to add to that. On the librarian side, we're seeing definitely the studio intelligence, like especially with our larger clients that are looking at how do I manage the corpus of locally, so that's not going to the shared with everyone else, of what we know, what are the types of scripts that we have in our database. But beyond that, I think the bigger piece on the metadata side is there's a project I did, I think in 2015, around digital virtual backlot, right? Which is that reuse of assets. How do I keep those assets? How do I reuse them across the pipeline? And the challenge then, as it is now, isn't just a technical one of being able to reuse that asset. It's who owns that asset, which department has it, who do I pay, who do I track down within the studio structure to find that asset and then get the permissions and move forward with that, right? And that's always been the sticking point with actually operationalizing that vision of integrated and cross-platform assets. So I think we're going to see a need and a push for more of that, operationalizing that with people that are able to manage the metadata around that and then make that operational.
Wonderful, thank you. And I'm just going to do a time check. I know there's one more question, but I don't know if we can squeeze in one more question or we're at time. We're at time. Okay. Okay, I was just sanity checking on that one. No worries. We'll take your question offline. And everyone, thank you so much for attending, participating. Thank you all. We'll be here if there are any questions, and you can also reach us online. Thank you, everyone.